Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions throughout, just stop me and I'll be happy to answer them. So my name's Jacob Chan. I'm a ceramicist and sculptor. I'm currently based and working just outside of Liverpool on the Wirral. And my work is based on a combination of my cultural heritage. So being half Chinese and half English, I take inspiration from traditional Chinese shapes and forms, and then try and incorporate bits of broken pottery and things like that I find from around the coastlines of Britain. And I use them to highlight certain areas of my work, such as the spines or the fins or things like that on the figurative work. So my work is a combination of both wheel-thrown ceramics and figurative forms. I specialise in solidified ceramics. So it's a process that I learnt in uni, and the process consists of firings up to 1300 degrees Celsius. And when you, at certain intervals of that firing, you introduce a solution. I use bicarbonate soda, but I know some people do salt glazing, which is a little bit more corrosive. We originally did start learning salt glazing in university, but we had complaints from the neighbours that the corrosion was melting holes in their washing on the washing lines. So we turned to soda firing. I don't know how true that was, but yeah, we went to soda firing. Soda firing is a bit more safe. It only releases carbon dioxide, and the bicarbonate soda crystals are biodegradable. My glazes I use one glaze, but due to the effects, the atmospheric effects in the kiln, you can achieve reds from reduction and greens from oxidation. So just by suffocating the oxygen within the work, you get reds. And clay body also makes a massive difference. So I use a specialist clay from Pot Clays, which is Reduction St. Thomas. And that handles really well in the kiln. It's great for throwing, and it's great for sculpting as well. My firings range between 12 and 16 hours long. I have to check every half hour as well, just to turn up the gas and control the airflow. With like the gas prices and everything going up, it used to cost me £90, and it cost me about £180 a fire now per firing. So it's a costly way to do it, but yeah, it's great, and I think it's for me it works really well on my work, pulling out the depth and the colour quality in the work. So I first started during my A-levels. We had a lady come in. Her name was Emma Rodgers. She's done things she's done things for Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy. So she's had work in the movies, and she's done the Cilla Black statue in Liverpool. I don't know whether anybody's seen that. So she came in to do a 2-day workshop with me, and I'd never touched clay until I met her, and I was never really good at drawing or painting or anything like that. So as soon as I touched it, I fell in love with it, and she asked me over to her studio to learn more, and I sort of ended up doing an unofficial apprenticeship with her. So I helped her out. She taught me the skills to sculpt. So yeah, she's been a big part of my influence. I really do consider her as a role model. But yeah, so after my 2 years of A-levels and my unofficial apprenticeship with her, I definitely knew I wanted to do it as a career path. So I went to university to study, and I went to Carmarthen School of Art, where it was an amazing place to go, because it was in the middle of nowhere in South Wales. It was great for gas firings. Yeah, it was great for gas firings. We got the freedom, the chance to do things that you wouldn't be able to do in a built-up area. So yeah, and with it being such a small course, the tutors were amazing. They really nurtured each individual artist's creativity. So if anybody wants to do a degree, I'd highly recommend Carmarthen. So after my degree, I graduated. I stayed on and did a 1-year residency and a sort of a part-time technician job at the university to save money and be able to use their facilities. But I was given the amazing opportunity to visit Uzbekistan as part of the British Arts Council. We went over to study how the sustainability and development of ceramics is different over there and what we could sort of do in this country to do the same. And it was an amazing experience. We went for 2 weeks. I went with somebody from the Leach Pottery, who's doing really well now, and another artist from Carmarthen School of Art. But it was great to see the locals. We went all around Uzbekistan to each different area where we got to meet each master, and each master has their own style from each area of Uzbekistan. But the way that the process and the ways that they work are still very primitive, very raw. They have kick wheels that are made of concrete, and their wheel heads are just cross sections of logs. So when you see these people throwing these amazing vessels and jars on just a piece of concrete and a cross section of a log, it makes you think about how you're working and doing things. And their kilns as well, they have them just big holes buried in the ground, which they load wood into. It's incredible. So it really is incredible to see. So another way that they make their glazes was with donkey power. So that was incredible to see too. They said to us that they reassured us that the donkeys only work one week a year, crushing all the glaze, and then they get 51 weeks off holiday. They really. It was really interesting to see. This was just an old mill that they used to grind grain and stuff like that, but it had been repurposed for glaze making. So, that was such an amazing trip. The trip concluded with an exhibition at the Museum of Applied Art. It was where all the masters came together, including us three from our school, to do an exhibition together. They wanted to show everybody's techniques and processes from each area. So we did a tree of life, which I think it had about eight or nine different segments and then branches that came off from all their students, because a lot of them teach. But it was topped with one of my little birds that I do. So it was a dove. It was an incredible experience. So after my trip to Uzbekistan, I came back home and I wanted to build a soda kiln, which is primarily what I'd been doing down in uni, and I couldn't keep using their kiln anymore. So unfortunately, I'm sure my parents are thrilled about it, but I went and built one in their backyard. So the process was really, really challenging. Trying to build it myself. I'm still quite young, so trying to find potters to ask about was difficult because I don't know that many. But I managed to get it complete. There's lots of things to learn about and figure out, and it was just a matter of trial and error. So with the soda firing process, you introduce the soda, which is diluted down through the burner portholes. And like I mentioned before, it's at different intervals. So I do 1100, 1200, and then 1300. So in total, it's about 4.5 kilos. And what it does is it vaporizes inside the kiln and then attacks the surface of either the glaze or the coloured slip that you've applied to the pot. And that's how you get these lovely speckled patterns and deep colours coming through. So I originally started helping in Hatfield, but it's now Windsor, as a volunteer, and I did that for about 2 years, and it was great. It was a great experience as I got to meet all the artists, meet all the lovely people, all the staff who've been so kind and great to me through my career so far. And it was an amazing chance to then be able to go on and exhibit with my university, and I was awarded the Student Award by Pot Clays. So they granted me a stand for the following year to be able to exhibit my work, which helped incredibly and massively in my career. Just being able to be given that platform to start my career was perfect. So yeah, thank you very much, Mark, for that. Yeah, so on the left is my stand, my student stand, and then the following year I returned as an exhibitor. So that's the one on the right. And now my stand is just in the Derek Ems, just outside this one. So please go visit after this. Yeah, so my main aim was to end up setting up my own studio with my own kiln. And to do that, I needed money. So I did take a full-time job in Granby Ceramics Workshop, which is just outside Liverpool, in central Liverpool. And they specialise in architectural ceramics, and they won the Turner Prize in 2015. What they did was they aimed to, on the road that they were operating out of a terrace house, so they had this amazing functional workshop just inside a terrace house, and all the other terrace houses along that street, I think they did a scheme which was a £1 scheme, so you could buy a house. It was to help lower income families get onto the property ladder. But what they were doing was they were offering ceramics, so they were helping to put fireplaces in and lights and things like that. So it was a really nice community project that they developed. They did a range of encaustic porcelain tiles, which are made using a bran press, and a range of slip cast porcelain ware too. And those slip cast porcelain ware, they really cleverly designed to have separate moulds. So, but the moulds all interlock, so you can change the height of your bottle. So you could technically pick what you wanted and then put in an order for it. So I did some really interesting projects with Granby, and one of them was working for was a project in Venice, and it was for the Venice Biennale. We had to make 14,000 tiles in a ram press. The ram press is the machine on the left, and that basically what you did was you marbled up your clay, put it in, and used a hydraulic press to press it out. So we did 14,000, which ended up in the central pavilion, which is still there now. So it's great to go and see before Venice, because I believe it's submerging underwater now, before that disappears completely. So yeah, so after, I only worked there for a short period of time, because then I applied for the Great Pottery Throwdown in 2019, which was filmed and then aired in 2020. For me, I went on the show because I believed it would be the next step in my career and how I'd get to where I wanted to be able to do it as a full-time ceramicist and get my name out there. So I know lots of people have questions about this while I was on the show, so I'm going to pause now for anybody who wants to ask any questions about that. So if anybody has any questions, that'd be great. If not, I can carry on swiftly. Any questions? None? That's fine. Oh God, there we go.
Did it ultimately help you? I just come across your flag. It's not a really interesting question, sorry. I was just going to ask, did it ultimately help you though, going on the show?
Massively, yeah. It was.
How?
It was an incredible experience. It's advertisement that you can't pay for. Being shown like that nationally is just something that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself. So for me, I think that's one of the main reasons why I went on, was just to be seen so that I could get to the next step in my career. I loved it. It was a great experience, and it was very, very stressful. And I say to a lot of people, I lost a lot of weight and I looked my best then. But then after the show, too many pork pies and things like that, I put it all back on. But yeah, I made amazing friends, that I still keep in touch with today. And it was just an incredible experience. Yeah, really good. Really good.
Yeah. What was the audition process to get through?
So the audition process to get through, you started by just filling in an application form, and that was sent to me by a friend who owns a gallery in Manchester. They just said you should apply for this, and you had to get past that first wave of just filling in the form, and then you had a telephone call, which they just asked you a basic few questions, you know, to make sure you weren't a robot. You know, we all know that. They asked, you know, just a few pottery-related questions, and then after that, I think they narrowed it down again to an interview stage. So you actually physically had to take your work to show a panel of judges. And the panel of you know, you spoke about your work, just talked briefly about your processes and who you are and where you've gotten so far. And then if they liked you after that, then you went to it was sort of like a practical test. So the practical test was in a studio down in London, and you were given 45 minutes to make. They gave you a huge lump of clay, and they said you have to use all this clay, but make something spectacular. I made in 45 minutes, so I was like frantically making it all, sweating, and right at the very end, my piece fell apart in my hands. But they were loving it. I think that's what they thought would make great TV. So the fact that my piece fell apart in front of me. So I was fortunate to get through and get onto the show. And each week I sort of just said to myself, you know, just get through this week and see how you get on. Don't worry. Just be proud that you've got this far. And I was lucky enough to get to the finals. So I'm really pleased about that. So. How many applicants were there? I'm not sure how many applicants there were. I think there were a good few thousand, what they said, but they didn't give us an exact figure. So yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
How easy did you find it to adapt? How easy did you find it to adapt what you would normally do to then the task that they gave you on the show?
Yeah. So I get asked this a lot, and I think, for me, I tried to stay as true to myself as I could. So lots of people said, "Oh, you did dragons too much," and for me, that's my style of work. You know, I didn't really want to just go and make whatever they wanted me to make. I tried to always keep the brief alongside my work. So I walked away quite happy, knowing that I hadn't just sold out and made what it was that they wanted. And I was lucky to get that far, so it seemed to have worked. But yeah, it was really unrealistic. One of the challenges was the toilet, and making the toilet was just ridiculous. You know, we had, I think it was like 4 hours to make the shape, and then it went into a drying room for 2 days. And anybody who's a ceramicist will know that a toilet doesn't dry in 2 days. It's just ridiculous. So they fired it, and everybody's toilets cracked and leaked, but I was quite lucky because Matt, who was also in the final with me, his toilet, a huge chunk of it came off, which he just went, "Oh, I don't need that now." So he gave it to me, and I smashed it up and stuffed all the cracks with his broken toilet, which helped prevent huge amounts of water from coming out. So yeah. So I mean, adapting. It wasn't so much adapting. I sculpt and I throw, so I think I had an all-round relative, understanding of the processes. But yeah. So, yes.
Thank you. Sorry, just kind of leading on from the previous question. Those short drying times and things, which I think frustrated us viewers as much as you guys, was that due to the filming schedule, or did they honestly expect you guys to be able to sort of adapt your makes to fit the unrealistic schedule? Yeah,
they said they had somebody test out all these challenges before, but I really don't think they did, because it wasn't as it wasn't as what they'd said. So the drying times and the actual times that we were there, it was long days. We'd start at 6 o'clock, and we'd actually get up at 5 in the morning and be at the studio for 6. And we'd for the first couple of weeks, because we had to get through 10 potters and have enough footage for them, we'd be there till about 9 at night. So it was really intense, and it would be 4 days on and 3 days off. So 4 days solidly making, and you'd start the challenge in those 4 days, and you'd finish it after the 3 days off. But in that time, when you were making for that challenge, that's when they'd give you the next brief. which would be really difficult because you wouldn't know whether you were going to be kicked off the show, but you'd have to prepare for the next challenge. So it was always a nail-biting experience, but yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You can talk about how you do the sculpture and the pottery together. I'd love to hear you tell us a bit about a piece like that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so for this piece example, I'm not great at throwing still. I'm still developing, I'm still learning, and I think any potter will tell you the same, that it's a continuous learning curve. But I throw these in two parts. So I'll do the top first because I only have one wheel, and I do it upside down, so like a big bowl. And then I throw this section like a big vase, and then I'll turn the other piece over, attach it, score it, and then I'll continue throwing. And that way I can achieve the size that I need. So it will usually take me a couple hours to do the shape. I don't turn my bottoms, I leave them nice and flat, so that then I can add a piece of felt just so that people can obviously move them and not worry about scratching their tables. But I try and sculpt hollow, so everything I do, it's how I was taught by my mentor, Emma. I'll sculpt the piece and then I'll slip it and score it and add it on. But I try and keep it nice and loose and have rips and tears, which offers that fragility into the work. But recently I've really been trying to tighten up and refine the tendrils and the face and just bring characteristics to the piece. I'm not a great drawer, so I'll do quick sketches, but a lot of the time I'll have an idea in my head, and I think the best thing with clay is it is like sketching, so you can just sketch in your hands and just attach it, and if you don't like it, the beauty of it is it's just a flexible material. You can rip it off and you can start again. So yeah. Thank you. Yeah, is that all the questions? Yeah, okay, so here we go. So after doing the show, it was a tricky one really because COVID hit, so couldn't really do the shows, couldn't go round, meet people, and just benefit from being on it. So I really had to develop a social presence, which I'm not great. And my partner Rosie, she'll tell you I'm like a caveman with these things. So yeah, I'm terrible with technology, but setting up an Instagram was what I needed to do to be able to sell, to be able to get to that platform. And I think it's a really important piece of kit now as a tool to have an online social presence. So I developed that and I started selling from that, which was great for a while, but it became too overwhelming. So I developed a website. I built it all myself, taught myself. I think it's the best way because you know exactly what you can put on and exactly how it works. So the website was the next step, and these kind of things were my main way of getting my income while COVID was happening. So I ended up shipping a lot of stuff abroad to America and Hong Kong, and I had an international client base, which was really nice during COVID. And then when COVID started to ease up a bit, that's when I started doing shows again, being able to have gallery shows and exhibitions. So that was the next step. So once COVID had started to sort of ease up a bit, I was really lucky, and it was one of my aims to have a show in a national art gallery. I set myself targets when I was in uni, and this was one of them. So I was absolutely ecstatic to have this opportunity. It was a year-long show in the Walker National Art Gallery in Liverpool, and it was part of the Year of Craft, and it tied in nicely with a couple of the galleries that were also taking part in it in Liverpool and Manchester. So these are just a couple of my works. Again, one glaze, and these were shown inside the exhibition. The exhibition was based on a lost temple theme. So if you go to Asia and you see all these temples, they're often run down, and you have these antique relics inside that have managed to stand the age of time, and then you have all these animals and creatures that are living inside and just being naughty, like the monkeys. So I did this alongside my mentor Emma, she took part in it, and we had a big display case which we filled with that. This is a short video. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long of that exhibition. So, yeah, if you could play it, that'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Emma Rodgers, and my work is part of the Past, Present and Future exhibition celebrating the Year of Craft. I've been visiting the Walker since I was a small child and have always enjoyed the journey this magical place can take you on. From far-off climates to travelling through time, the marks of the artist that evoke a response, taking you into another world. Working with Jacob Chan and featuring Julia Carter-Preston's work, we embarked on designing our case with the help and support of Nicholas Scott, and chose to respond to some of the Walker's vast collection. Focusing on the space and pieces in the Walker was a good starting point to link our 3 very different styles. We chose the Forgotten Temple as this would connect Julia's beautiful, intricate, delicate forms with Jacob's throne pieces, often inspired by ritual and cultures, as my wild animals invaded the forgotten space and made it their home. On approach to the entrance, Jacob's food dogs are positioned seated on pillars to support and guard the long abandoned space. Artefacts and vessels glisten in the light, the monkey and peacock Juno taking ownership of the space as if it had always been theirs. The pillars were first thrown by Jacob and inscribed by myself to feature 3 of our wonderful galleries, the Walker, the Williamson and the Bluecoat Display Centre. The Stubbs monkey provides the inspiration not only because for me it is like visiting an old friend in the gallery, but it's also the same breed as the ones I have created, a rhesus macaque, a breed renowned for inhabiting temples, particularly in Asia, something I endeavoured to recreate. My epic journey sculpture is of a female figure sailing through the waves. The piece is made of porcelain and was modelled on my daughter. I endeavoured to capture Helen of Troy, pursued and surrounded by small sailing boats, her dress sculpted in clay to represent coral and shells in the sea, as she was the face that launched 1,000 ships. This was inspired by the pre-Raphaelite painting of Helen of Troy in the Walker collection. However, the painting that has provided the most inspiration is Life and Thought Emerging from the Tomb by Evelyn de Morgan. I've created a porcelain figure based on my daughter, inspired by the figure Thought, a learned classic draped scholar. She stands on a ceramic base on which I have inscribed features and details based on the painting. Blossom, butterflies and doves ascend from the painting and onto the figure, linking to the sculpture of my peacock, which has marched into the case and taken its place on a table by Jacob Chan, reminiscent of the pillar of the tomb. The bird is associated with the Roman goddess Juno, who needed to keep an eye or 100 on her husband Jupiter. The peacock is porcelain with a beaten copper tail and feathers of recycled plastic which are highlighted in iridescent blues and greens to suggest their famous 100 eyes, which in many cultures symbolises the stars, wealth and royalty. This project has made me revisit and reflect on this great asset, the Walker, which I am very fortunate to have on my doorstep. It was a chance to respond and collaborate with different artists and works, interpreting the gallery's collection from past and present, and I hope this exhibition provides inspiration for future generations to continue exploring art.
My name's Jacob Chan, and my work focuses on the crossover of my cultural heritage. Being half Chinese and half English, I'm inspired by traditional Chinese shapes, vessels and folktales which incorporate found objects and materials from around the coastlines of Britain. I use these within my work to build up texture and depth to the surface. The pieces featured in this exhibition were inspired by the Walker's collection. The food dogs that I've created have been positioned in the temple to offer protection against evil forces and spirits. The work I create is a combination of wheel-thrown, figurative forms which are then glazed and fired through the intense soda firing process. It is here where I'm able to achieve an array of colours, ranging from greens and blues through to reds and purples. The column table, which was thrown in several parts and fused together with glaze, is a tribute to 2 inspiring pieces of work on show currently within the Walker Art Gallery. The shape and form was inspired by the Staffordshire-made table on display opposite and the colour palette and strong architectural pillars which are pictured in Evelyn de Morgan's painting, Life and Thought Emerging from the Tomb. The grooves have been decal glazed with a blue oriental floral and dragon pattern which represent my Eastern culture and appreciation to the collection of oriental ceramics on display within the gallery. In honour of Julia Carter-Preston's memory and legacy, I've created a few of her tiles as a continuation and representation of past, present and future, which runs through the temple-inspired layout. They have been image transferred with a weathered, time-aged effect and scattered through the exhibit to help bring this idea alive. Acknowledging George Stubbs' painting, A Monkey, we have recreated this in a 3D sculpturally inspired adaptation as a consideration to the lasting artworks in the gallery. The small decal porcelain bowls have been made to represent almost as an offering to the temple, which run alongside Julia Carter Preston's bowls. These you can still find currently being used in temples over in the east to pay respect to the gods and for protection against evil. So, yeah, that was just a short video of the exhibition that we had, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. So I primarily get my income now through commissions and galleries. I only do one show a year, and it's this show, so I like to focus all my energy into this one, and I find that it works best like that. So this piece was a commission that was called The Engineer's Urn. So it was for a client whose father had sadly passed away, and they gave me cogs and gears that was from his toolbox to incorporate into the work. So I love doing small projects like this because it just makes it feel like I've got a connection with the the topic or the subject that I'm making for. So yeah, so here's just some more images of the gears and cogs. And this is just another ginger jar, another commission that ended up going to Switzerland. So yeah, so that's all just one glaze again, just having used the atmospheric effects. I get reduction on one side and oxidation on the other. My biggest piece so far is a wall dragon, which is in a London flat opposite the British Museum, and it was a 1.5 metre wall dragon. So it was done in 3 pieces, like a triptych piece of art, 50 centimetre pieces, which made installation and hanging a little bit easier. So yeah, I try and do functional wear as well as sort of entry-level pieces for people to buy. All my stuff is functional, so you can use it. It pours out the mouth, and I quite often get asked if it has a good pour, and yes, it does. The tongue cuts off that pour, which acts really well as a way for it not to drip down. Here's just another teapot. I've got quite a few different ones on my stand. Every one that I do is individual, just with the firing process, and I try and add movement through the sculptural sides, quite differently to make it more unique. And one-off pieces. These are my smaller teacups that I do. So I'm really fascinated by the ceremonial processes in China, how much pride and time goes into serving tea. I think that just something so basic and simple, and they can last and they're functional. So that's why I love teacups so much. Here's just another tea set, and I think that's it. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if you can't think of any now, I'll be at my stand, so please come by and ask me.
Hi, Jacob.
Hi, Mark.
Where do you see your ceramics going in the future?
So I'd love to just continue making commissions and doing bigger gallery shows and just continuing to develop my knowledge and skills. I still think I'm really quite a novice at it. I don't have much knowledge in the way to soda fire things, but yeah, it's just that continuous development that I'd like to progress. I'm currently doing a project at the moment with somebody who he's running a non-profit organisation. He's an architectural developer, and the piece of land that he's dug up to build this house on, he's reclaimed a load of clay, and he's half Chinese like myself, and he wants me to do a 5.5-foot terracotta warrior out of it. So it's really nice to be able to link those kind of projects together, and I know he's running it to sort of get the message across that all this clay is going to waste, and it would be sad to, you know, to see that go to waste. So he's digging it out and giving it to local artists to just experiment with. And there's some really interesting things are coming out of it. But it's really raw. It doesn't have much support or body to it. It's quite like a terracotta itself. But yeah, so he's trying to get artists to make bits of art that can go back into the house once it's complete. So the people who buy the house will be eating from the bowls that the house has been pretty much built on. So I thought that was a really nice project. I love doing things like that, doing commissions and projects like that, and I think I'd just love to continue that further. Yeah, any other questions?
Personal question. How old are you?
Oh yes, yeah, sorry. I'm 26. So thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, so I started when I was 17, so it has been about 9 years now doing it. So yeah, thank you so much. Any other questions? Was that it? No. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Really appreciate it. I just want to thank Hannah as well for giving me the opportunity to do this. So thank you. So yeah, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be at my stand. So feel free to come by.